everyone, and welcome to Heart and Hand Extra, the second of our 2 free weekly shows here. Well, I was going to say here on iTunes, Android, but you could get it from a multiple of different sources. Joining me today is one of my favourite podders. Yes, it's the wonderful Mr. Martyn Ramsey.
Afternoon, Davey. How are you doing?
I'm not too bad, my friend. I thoroughly enjoyed Rangers progressing last night to the 4th qualifying round, the final playoff round for the Europa League after a 0-0 draw against Maribor, of course coupled with a 3-1 victory in the first leg. That puts us through. A controlled performance from Rangers where we were set up to not lose that match, first and foremost. I think the attitude was very much what we have, we hold, and with a combination of work rate, determination, good shape and excellent goalkeeping, Martyn, we got through in the end reasonably comfortably.
Yeah, as fans I think we're going to have to start recalibrating ourselves to just expecting us to do a standard job in Europe, because it's been so long since we've been used to that. You see the first 5 minutes and them just launching balls in from all over. You think, Jesus, we can't do this for another 85 minutes. But I mean, McGregor does his job, and at times Goldson and Katic had to do theirs, and that's no room for criticism. You know, that's what they're there for.
We spoke on the show, Martyn. You and I spoke on the show towards the end of last season about when the rumours about McGregor came up, and both of us, I think, said that while goalkeeper wasn't necessarily the first position we would think of, he was an upgrade. And last night I thought it was inarguable.
Oh Jesus, it's not even the first time this season that we've said, if that's Wes, we don't get that win, or we don't get that point or the result, whatever, because that insecurity spreads throughout the team. Now, we've said before, we've had our problems with Wes, but again, not necessarily the summer would he be our first priority to change. But Gerrard, possibly more so Mark Allen, did identify that, and it's come up trumps very early on. Maybe a wee bit harsh on Ford that we've not seen him behind a centre half of Goldson and Katic and some of the fucking clown shoes that he had to marshal.
It's a really good point. That should be offered up, I think, in fairness.
But he just has he's got a presence. I imagine he's got a presence in the dressing room. I'm absolutely sure that he does. And there's now a building sense that we don't lose a goal very often, never mind get beat, and we don't even go behind.
No.
And that comes from the back, that triangle there. And we might see this a lot this season with various positions that, God, they're really good, but the worry will be what happens if one of them gets injured, and if either of those three gets injured. I think we all would worry a wee bit. But that's the nature of having to sell or get rid of or bungle in a car and dump in the middle of a lake 9 players every summer. Building a squad and having depth and having options takes a long time, and that's just something we're going to have to be patient with, I think.
It's been quite clear that Stevie G wants another centre back, a left-sided centre back, pretty much all through the window. And last night, with a couple of suspension, a few injuries, the squad depth was really reduced. And to your point about the centre backs, I don't necessarily see at the moment cover in that position. Ross McCrory at a push. I can't bar that though. Whom
he's already said. Sorry, David. He's already said may well end up there, but is not ideal at centre half at this stage of his career. So even 3 centre halves is, if he does get someone in, isn't ideal.
No. Centre halves pick up bookings, they pick up suspensions. You need to occasionally give someone a break. It's just a fact. Although I think Katic and Goldson are revelling in the partnership. Last night, when, as you say, the balls were getting fizzing in, I don't have that fear, which it seems to have lived with me for so long with Rangers, that any ball into the box is an adventure.
It's muscle memory now.
Yes, it is. It's just
a flinch.
Yeah. When they get a corner, last night they got a lot of corners, and even though Rangers were never really under any significant pressure from them, every time they got one, I was edge of the seat.
Yeah, but again, as the game went on, you start to remember, no, these guys are okay.
Yeah.
And I don't think we'll lose too many goals or allow opposition to create too many dangerous opportunities from the aerial threat. I think they're a big challenge. Goldson maybe more than Katic is when teams start to play on the deck, try to split them. I think Katic get a bit of pace, not entirely sure about Goldson, but that just comes again from positional sense and a wee bit of experience. And I've just no fears really with the two of them. But I would be amazed if we got to the end of August and we didn't have another ready-made central defensive option. But the partnership, David, sometimes these things take time. Other times it's alchemy and it's immediate rapport and it's an immediate understanding, and it looks like the two of them with McGregor behind them. And I think that's you be careful you use the word threesome when we talk about Alan McGregor, but there is it very much is a triumvirate in there that has that understanding pretty much immediately, and that's fortunate.
If you're our age, you go back to Woods, Butcher, Roberts, Woods, Butcher, Goff. You love that as you say, that like trio at the back, and you go right from that everything can stem. And it's great to see. And last night it was very needed. I thought that the two in front of them did a remarkable job defensively, Scott Arfield and Ryan Jack. If there is a nitpick about the performance last night, we didn't use the ball well and sometimes put ourselves under pressure unnecessarily. But the running, the pressing, the tracking, the tackling from those two in particular, and I thought Jari, I see some people criticising him, but I felt that he did what was asked of him in a role that I don't think he'd have played had Hart and Hans Lasana Koulibaly been fit. He wasn't in the team to do what normally he would be signed for. He was asked, and again, because he was pretty much the only midfielder left, he was asked to go in and press and hold the ball. I think he did it okay I think he did reasonably well in the first half. Second half he tired and was rightfully taken off, but I did think that those two, Arfield and Jack, for the defensive side of the match, and Arfield more so trying to break, where I thought he was quite effective, I thought they had super games.
I thought Arfield was absolutely excellent, and I agree. I think as the game went on, he became a wee bit more composed on the ball in terms of the transition and trying to make us more of an attacking threat in the second half. Jack maybe just looked a wee bit say rusty. If it's only a week he's been out, but if he's had concussion and quite a hefty knock, it's maybe understandable, but he grew back into himself, and I totally agree. The two of them were excellent. Where we do have right to flinch and remember European games past is exactly that, our use of the ball away from home in Europe. I've never, well, that's not true, maybe a couple of seasons we could pick out where that's not been the case.
Advocate,
my 10 years watching Rangers.
Yeah, advocate, that's it. Even under Souness, when we had good ball players, we were more effective under Walter in that era because we had Haitley and we were able to go direct.
An out ball, yeah.
But really advocate the first two seasons. Rangers could get the ball on the deck. But you're right, apart from that, I don't know what it is, mental, because, well, it can't be, because so many different teams, so many different players from so many different leagues. It's just a strange thing, maybe, I don't know, maybe a panic thing. But what I will say, and it leads into this point, is that when Steven Gerrard arrived, one of the concerns put forward was that he was tactically an undisciplined player, which at times he was. I don't think it's unfair to say that. At times he was very Roy the Rovers and, shooting from everywhere, and he would play his own game at times. Whereas I think here he looks at what he has, what he needs, and he cuts his cloth accordingly.
That was my concern. That was my number one concern. I shared it when you and I spoke on the day he was unveiled, not just as Rangers manager, but Steven Gerrard football manager, because he absolutely was. He had tactical issues as a player. Roy of the Rovers is exactly it, trying to do everything, trying to put out all the fires himself instead of doing the job that he was told to do. And that was a big concern, that managers tend to mould teams in their own image, and how would he cope with that? But that's another big sign of encouragement last night. Croatia was another one. Half time last week at home in Maribor was another one, where he has asked players, you mentioned the Jari, and you're absolutely right, he's asked players and the team to do a specific job. That job was different from Sunday against St Mirren. It will be different from this coming Sunday at Rugby Park, and seeing them adapt to different situations, seeing individual players adapt to the situation as it's required, is very, very encouraging, because it was a legitimate concern. It's not writing the guy off before he's even kicked kicked, or his team have kicked the ball, or saying that this is going to be an absolute disaster. It was I think a genuine area of concern, and the early signs are that the manager, who doesn't have to run about and understands the job is very different, is more adaptable than he was in the hustle and bustle of the midfield.
I thought that as the game went on, one of the things I look for, because I've seen it so often from Rangers when we've been chasing the game in Europe, is you look for signs of encouragement, such as having to go all the way back to the goalkeeper, forcing them to do that, which we did quite a lot, and watching their body language for growing signs of frustration. And from about the 60th minute, their guys on the touchline were aggressively shouting at the ref and giving off that vibe. And then the players sort of did it. The big lad up front, OJ Simpson, he was getting into the arguments and scraps. The number 4, who will never want to see, hear, or even psychologically touch upon the name Alfredo Morelos again, he was losing the plot. It was encouraging, because I've so often, Martyn, I've seen cleverer European sides do that, and quite often more limited on paper European sides who just had more know-how do that to us, and I felt last night was a bit of a role reversal.
No, absolutely. Our individual players at times played the game. The clock was against them. They're the ones with a deficit to overcome, but a huge deficit. If they get to 70 minutes and they score, it's very much game on. But I imagine everyone in that stadium that wasn't flying from Glasgow were hoping that you at least get one back within the hour, and then the last 30 minutes really can be an onslaught. And when that hour ticks by, I don't think it's that surprising that individually, if not as a team, that they started to get very frustrated. But yeah, we worked them well in certain areas for sure.
No, we did. And again, I thought Alfredo Morelos, asked to do not the most fun job in the world for a striker. And going into it, it's going to be more perspiration than about any inspiration. I thought he did really well again last night. I thought his attitude was good. They were trying to wind him up. It wasn't... People have kind of said, well, his temper and he reacts. He had 3 or 4 of them on occasion getting in his face. And I thought there was a great moment just in terms of constructing a team spirit, where after he'd had that fantastic hold-up run, won a corner in the box, he did have, as I say, 3 or 4 of them round him, and he was looking as though he might react, and Scott Arfield ran 40 yards to just take him right out the danger and just say, look, you don't need to do this, they're panicking. And he calmed down, and then a few minutes later the big number 4 clatters him again. Alfie gets up and stuck his tongue out at him and laughed and ran away. Perfect. That's what I want to see from him.
That's exactly it. It's being in the moment and controlling yourselves, putting them under pressure and winding them up. You let them draw the fouls. Let them come out the fouls. Don't kick out. We're going back to last weekend, or 2 weekends previous. Sorry, when you're putting yourself in a situation where a referee could be overminded, and that referee might, because he seemed to be a bit of a homer, where they could interpret the rules to one extreme. As long as you're aware that if you put yourself about the way that he does, you're going to get some attention, and you know that attention's coming, then you should be able to control yourself when it does. And he that aspect of the game, he was superb, which you need in that kind of European performance when you're trying to do that kind of job away from home. Second leg, very different from the first leg, against a decent side, a Champions League team.
They were, and I'll be honest, when the draw came out, I thought that's maybe a bridge too far at this stage in our development. And I know that we can lapse into, well, we're Rangers and we should be beating Maribor, but currently, when you look at how everything is, no, they were the favourites, rightfully so. They are much higher ranked than us in Europe because they've been in it and performing well in it. And it was a very difficult tie. So to come through it, I'm over the moon, and to get through it so professionally with different types of performances. That's one thing that this Rangers team is impressing me by, because firstly it's a team, very much, and it has to be, because we don't have the quality of individuals that we once did. We all know that, and you've got to have a team ethic, and we've seen it so often the last few years where we've looked to individuals, be it to give us, great white hopes like a Ross McCrory or Alfredo Morelos when he was in his hot streak last season. We need to have an 11 or a 16 or an 18 or even larger that know their jobs and do it well. And I thought a good example of that last night was Andy Halliday. Andy Halliday is a limited player. He's not a fullback at all. And he was thrown in last night because we didn't have anybody else. But with special instructions to Scott Arfield, get out there and protect him. With instructions to Andy Halliday not to cross a halfway line, really. And I thought he acquitted himself as well as he possibly could. Yes, he made mistakes. He will do. But they targeted him as a potential weak link. And look, any Rangers fan who didn't see the team and think is fibbing. He did exactly what we could reasonably expect of him, and that hasn't always been the case the last few years with Rangers squads, Martyn.
No, just doing basic fundamental jobs, and that's what he did. Nothing outstanding. Maybe grew as the game went on, and he popped up when Alfredo manages to cut that back without it going out the field. Then Halliday's got a goal to his name as well. But he was all right, and you go back to fundamental jobs which have been lacking, and he gets instructions. Arfield gets instructions, and they carry them out. Yes, you would target him. He's going to get a lot of attention down there. Of course you would. But no, he was fine.
I'd be awfully disappointed if we were coming up against a side who were without their two first choice left backs and they were playing a midfielder there and we didn't target them. So you have to expect that, and I thought he acquitted himself quite well there. There was a great moment. Our chum Fraser Martyn was in the Maribor end last night, right in the halfway line behind the dugouts, and he said at one point Michael Beale, after Andy Halliday had ran forward, delivered a cross which the ball went straight to their goalkeeper. Beale sprang out and ran and shouted, "Andy, that is not your job. Do not go over the halfway line." And I love that. People have jobs and they are tasked with doing them, and if they don't do them, there are consequences, and that again is definitely something we haven't always had the last couple of years.
No, and how refreshing is it to know that the instructions are being they're clear for a start, and footballers can actually understand what they've been asked to do, and every individual does have a specific plan, because it's probably understandable that, especially if Halliday, for example, grows into a game, that he starts to do what he naturally wants to do. He was a left wing back, was he not?
Yes, he was. Yes,
Bradford, and he's popped up with a few goals for Rangers before, when he first came. But it's curbing natural instincts. Ejaria, as well, being asked to curb natural instincts for a specific purpose. And as long as someone's on it doesn't have to be Gerrard. In fact, modern football would dictate it can never possibly just be the one man doing all the jobs. So if there's someone in there that works in the tactical shape, that decides this is how we need to approach a game, it doesn't need to be the boss. But if someone is on at the players all the time to remind them of their priorities in a game, that is, it shouldn't be heartening to see. It should be the fucking norm. But sadly, it hasn't been. No,
it really has not over the last few years. So that takes us through to the playoff round, as it's called, and we'll take on UFA of Russia, or UFA, as I think they'll probably come to be known. They got there by knocking out our old foes Progress. The game was headed to extra time. Progress were up 2-1, matching the first leg result when UFA got a goal in the last minute. Obviously would have won the tie anyway, but with the away goal completely sealed it for them, and they got through. Now they didn't qualify for Europe, but the one of the Russian sides who did failed to submit the correct paperwork and on time, and therefore the spot was awarded to them. They haven't had the most impressive run in terms of results, but they are there, and therefore you can't overlook them. Managed by former Bear Andrei Kanchelskis, so it's not a bye, and at this stage no tie would be. Against that, Martyn, I think we've beaten two better sides already, and look, if you'd said to us you would play this team to get into the Europa League, we would have bit your hand off for that.
No, that's the perspective. That's the story. One would expect that that Maribor probably are the best team of the four that we will have faced in this qualifying period. That means nothing now, though. If we don't get a healthy lead, then we're still up against it. It's still going to be very tricky. From what I can gather, they quite a compact side. They like to counter-attack, and the teams that they've faced thus far have kind of puzzled them in that regard, because they've not really stepped out and allowed them to play like that. So it'll be interesting to see how good they actually are, because I imagine certainly at Ibrox that we will be on the front foot and we will be trying to dictate the play. And it'll be interesting to see if they actually do have that threat and that danger. But yeah, the narrative Claxon is still out because of the manager. I think we all thought it might have got put to bed when Progress got knocked out, but we can still use it, which is always good.
Yeah, so it's great for the papers in Scotland to have something, isn't it, that they can focus on. So that
God forbid they actually have to talk about the intricacies of the football.
Yeah, well, imagine having to find out that they play a counter attack instead. No, come on, that's unreasonable. Andrei Kanchelskis used to play for Rangers. 2 weeks of stories right there, so you've got that to look forward to, folks. But yeah, all in all, extremely positive. Things moving on apace. Now the manager. I should probably point out the first leg of that tie is at home. Will take place next Thursday. Then the following Thursday, we will go to Russia at 3 p.m. UK kick-off time. So if you need to arrange time off to see the game, get the request in early. Is the advice, I think. But 3 days before we go to Parkhead. So Russia, not ideal, but I'd rather be there and have this problem than not.
No, it's a good problem to have, but the adrenaline takes care of itself, I imagine, for the 2nd of September.
Yeah, you would hope so anyway. Didn't last year, but you would hope so.
The adrenaline turned to paralysis, I think.
yes, different animal though, this Rangers team, or it appears to be at this stage anyway. So the bid came in this week for Alfredo Morelos, 3.75 million from Bordeaux, which has had implications for Bordeaux because their manager, Gus Poyet, colourful character, Martyn, I think fair to say.
He's not suited to management, is he?
Yeah.
I mean, he's broadly quite an effusive, endearing kind of guy. I mean, I think he's good as a pundit. He's very honest. He was quite an interesting player. I think most people quite enjoyed watching him. He's just not. He can't manage like that. That's just a big huff.
Well, for those of you who maybe haven't been following the story, he publicly criticised the club's director of football. And in Bordeaux, like most French teams, the director of football, unless you are superstar manager, is the guy who has the final say.
Yeah,
he's a boss, absolutely. And after a player was sold and a couple of targets that he wanted were rejected, he launched a public rant against the director of football with the inevitable consequences, and is no longer in the club. Now, I don't think that would particularly affect their chase for Morelos, because I think it was the director of football who was leading it. But Stephen Gerrard was asked last night about the bid, called it derisory, said that they need to come up with a bid that blows us out of the water, that makes us go wow, and if they don't, they shouldn't bother picking up the phone. Today he reiterated that when he said he's arguably our best player, we want to build the side around him. And he was asked, would it take a lot more? He said it would take a lot more than a lot more to get us interested. So as unequivocal a hands off as you can get. He did, of course, concede that every player in football has their price, but I get the impression that Rangers are not open to bids before they're getting up to a pretty serious valuation.
No, I think you're talking maybe 8 million before we would start to actually sit down. But again, that's very dependent on the time. If you're prepared and you know there's a possibility that a club could get close to where you want, you should be doing your work to, source out replacements. But there becomes a time in the window when that becomes pretty much impossible, and you end up wasting a few £1 million in a kind of panic buy, and that's just no good for anyone. We may have had a successful transfer for someone that we bought for £1 million.
Yeah.
And we've turned it into £8-9 million. But if you go and waste half of that on a kind of player you've not done the work on the deadline day, well, it's not really worth much. So it's not as black and white as, his value to us is X, and if you don't come anywhere near that, then we don't deal. That has to have a premium the closer you get to the end. And I'd just be surprised if anyone really got close to that. I think for maybe an English Championship team, probably could take a gamble on an £8 million bid, see what he's like in a different league, but they can't now. So I just don't think it's going to go anywhere this summer.
No, I don't think so either. And if his form keeps up, we certainly don't want it to. I mean, I think we're all resigned at one point. If our players do well, they'll go, but hopefully go in our terms and after doing us a real turn. Big match on Sunday. It's great. It does seem that we're into this big match already. We do pods on past games, Martyn, and we did 1990, 1993 this week on your show, The Time Capsule, on Patreon, when we did the Rangers Bruges game. And it's nice to have that feeling of big game, especially so quickly. Betfred Cup, something we would hopefully have a legitimate shout of winning. But tough tie, Kilmarnock away. Kilmarnock are a side with absolutely no fear of us based on last season, or should they? Confident in their own manager, confident in their own side. A new challenge for Rangers to go and play on that pitch. It's by no means a given, but one that we should be facing up to with a bit of confidence.
It's an interesting one, this, not only because of the recent history, but not the great record there of late. That horrific showing just before Christmas still burnt in my mind. Interesting to see how Kelly start this season. Are they able to follow on? What you always get from Steve Clarke is that impetus, but it disappears pretty quickly. And it'll be interesting to see how seriously we take this competition, because the games are coming thick and fast at the moment. How he rotates, if he rotates, will be interesting to see as well. And following the mould of Souness, not just for the club tie, but and I know that Hoggy would certainly echo this, he'll want to win that trophy, surely.
No,
I'd be surprised. I'd be surprised if he said no. If we get to the group stage of the Europa League, that is huge, and it is, by the way. But he wants to have that before anyone else this season. Have that Hampden moment where he's got something silver in his hands, and that's where belief comes from. At Rangers, other clubs base their belief on other things, but here it is about winning trophies. It's not just in Scotland. Mourinho did the same. Get the first win in. So it'll be very interesting to see how he approaches it. I hope, and I do expect it will be a strong team, and it really would be good to get this offer back. One of these teams that the last year or so we've found difficult. They've caused us problems. It's been a frustrating game, the pitch, blah 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 blah. It'd be good to just get that off the back, and then we go to Fir Park for another difficult game next week and get that scored off as well. And then we start to feel a wee bit more comfortable that, Europe aside, which is obviously new to us for the recent past. It's just burying some of these domestic ghosts would make us feel a hell of a lot more comfortable going to the 2nd of September.
We've got a couple of options, but not an awful lot. Lasana Koulibaly to have a scan on his injured thigh. Just a precaution, Stevie G said, but it does, you would think, probably rule him out for the weekend. We could bring back, and will bring back, Borna Barisic. John Flanagan also comes into the equation. Apart from that, there's not an awful lot of options. Kent, Middleton, perhaps. Sadiq played for the Colt team this week in their narrow loss to Falkirk in the Iron Brew Cup. There's not an awful lot of room for manoeuvre.
No, there's not. Wouldn't surprise me if Kent and Murphy did a wee bit of shift work, a bit of a rota between them, at least the first couple of months of the season. I'm not sure who else you bring into that in the middle. I think you're absolutely right. If there are any issues about exacerbating that Koulibaly injury, especially in that pitch, you don't want to take that risk.
No.
So the boys will be bandaged up and sent back out again, and see how we deal with the Thursday Sunday thing. But I think at this stage of the season, it's just middle of August, for Christ's sake, there should still be enough energy and enthusiasm and confidence, momentum to push us through.
Absolutely, there should. And of course, one of the key aspects that we struggled against last season, that performance in particular, was Yusuf Malumbu, who's no longer there. And our midfield, you would think, is significantly better equipped than it was. So no reason to fail. And I'm also not a big one for the pitch thing. I've seen a few people mention it. Look, you have to get on with it. It is what it is. Although I did laugh, Martyn, last week when Kilmarnock fans were complaining about the pitch at Livingston. Yeah. Which does look an interesting one, to say the least, but it's sort of like you are kind of not one of the clubs who can have a go at that. I'm afraid that's not open to you as an option.
But it's an excuse that's there though, and fans and players and managers especially will take any excuse going. I guess the key question is whether this defence can deal with Chris Boyd's pace the way that other defences haven't.
Well, we laugh, but
I know.
3 goals last season against us, so absolutely, that's going to be a key point. In terms of pace, you've got Jordan Jones, who, while raw, is quick and has started the season well for them. He's probably their key man.
Yeah, but our fullbacks now, especially back where you would expect Barisic to play, aren't exactly slow.
No.
And yeah, that'll be an interesting battle.
But unlike perhaps previous couple of seasons, I bounce out of bed and can't wait for the next fixture at the moment.
Yeah.
And that's such a difference, and it's great. And I can't wait. Wish it was Sunday, 12 o'clock right now, as we could go into that game. That would be ideal. So I'm going to put you on the spot, Martyn. Give me a prediction.
2-1 to Rangers.
I'm going to echo that. I think it'll be tight, but I think we might have just a wee bit too much quality for them. Remember, it's played to finish on the day, folks, so it could be one of those that goes all the way, but it will be tight. Kilmarnock have a kind of solid back four as well, and I think the key for Rangers is I expect us to make chances. It's, as always, will we be clinical enough? And if we've got our shooting boots on, I would expect us to get the victory. Okay, folks, that's everything then from us this week. Just a little bit of housekeeping to do. You'll have heard Martyn and I discuss the Patreon site. If you like what we do here on the free shows, please go and give us a try. It's patreon.com/heart and hand, and on there you'll find a multitude of shows. There's 700 hours in the archives already. We cover pretty much everything, and not just in Scottish football, not just Rangers, but also Italian football, European football in general, world football in general, and Martyn and I do it, along with our friend Jack, do a show about the English Premiership, which is, I think, really good.
People tell me it's good, David. I couldn't possibly.
Modesty forbids. But yep, go and check it out, folks. Just $1.99 per month. Gives you access to most of the show. $3.99 for the full package. Please go and give us a try. If not, though, because we don't just always try and flog you stuff. Please visit our website, which is just opened, which is www.heartandhand.co.uk. And on there you'll find various fun things, including blogs, bets, you name it, it's there. Actually, that's a lie. You could name a lot of things that aren't there, but there is some stuff, and it doesn't cost you anything. So please pop along to heartandhand.co.uk. If you have any queries, you can get in touch with me now through the website, which is just david@heartandhand.co.uk. So I'd like to thank our producers in London, Mr. Mike Lee and Paul Miles, and thank my guest today, the wonderful Mr. Martyn Ramsey.
Pleasure's mine as always, David.
Thanks very much, folks. We'll be back with you on Monday with the next free show. Till then, have a great weekend, and I hope the Bears keep the momentum going. Thanks very much for listening. Cheers. Bye.